they are 3-bet jamming this river as a bluff.
Yeah. That is just.
Hey everyone, Sebastian here from Kali Poker. I have a conversation coming up with Carter, aka Tokyo Penthouse. Carter is a very young, high-stakes professional, and so I thought it would be fun for the two of us to get on a call, shoot the shit a little bit, and then review some hands that students and other people in our Discord sent us. I also just want to quickly shout out Coin Poker. You can use the code Kali to get 33% rake back up to $2,000 on Coin Poker, and I'm pretty excited to be coming out in support of them in an environment where GG seems to be trying to turn poker into a casino game, upping the rake every year. I'm excited to see something like Coin Poker that is trying to foster a sustainable system for everybody to enjoy online poker for the foreseeable future. So without further ado, here's my conversation with Carter. Feel free to turn it on in the background while you're cooking or something, and if you want to skip past the preamble to the hands that we review, I will link to them in the video itself. Cool, enjoy. So it's Sebastian here with Kali Poker, and I am here with Carter White. Carter is a high-stakes poker player who plays in the same pool as me, Ontario, and I became aware of him because he was making content on YouTube, and I even had coaches from Europe saying, "What's the story with this Ontario situation? There's this guy Tokyo, he's streaming in Ontario. Tell me about this place." So yeah, it's been making waves. So thanks for agreeing to come on the channel.
Of course. Thank you for having me.
So Carter, I want to ask you a couple questions about who you are and your story and what you think about poker. So when did you first get into poker?
Probably when I was, I guess, like when I was younger, like playing for fun, like watching Doug Polk. But I was playing League of Legends at the time. I was trying to be like a pro League of Legends player, and yeah. But when I was like traveling, I would just randomly, I kind of got a little addicted, like DJ, and like deposit $50 prepaid card, bust it off. Yeah, that was my story when I was playing, and then around when I was like 21, got like a prepaid card and a buddy on it again. Played some tournaments for fun on my birthday. Guy had like no money to my name, and I won a tournament. And ever since then, like $20 tournament.
Sick.
Yeah, ran it up after that. I was like, you know what? I'm doing this. I'm trying, and I'm gonna work my ass off. Screw League of Legends.
It's always funny that little bit of run good at the beginning that people
Yeah.
needed to make the journey.
I was just like, yeah, it can be me. It can be me. I won.
So great. And Carter, I have maybe like a delicate question, but how old are you?
I'm 24.
24. Okay. So one of the young guns out there. I'm 30. So yeah, what's it like being younger and playing these stakes? Like I remember being 24 and maybe having, for me, like lower emotional regulation and just like less of a sense of what's going on. Like, what's it been like, just like winning and losing 20K in a single day as a young person?
Yeah, it's been. I don't know. I don't know if I'm too good at it. I guess I am. I think the biggest thing with it is how unrelatable I am to everyone that I'm friends with. I think that's the weird thing. It's like it's like there's a weird thing with like I don't want to come across like I have an ego or something, but when you tell people about your experience, it really feels like you're undermining what they're going through on a day-to-day basis. Like I don't know how to explain it. Like if someone's really worried, like that, like you're watching sports with someone and they've bet like $3 on the game and you're up 10K on the day or down 10K. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So it's a hard balance of like trying to just explain what's going on in your life, but also not trying to come across very egotistical.
Right. So do you have friends that like to just bet recreationally on sports and things like that?
Sure. Oh, when
Yeah.
I bet sports, I bet $5. Like
Yeah.
I went through that phase where I was betting a little too much, trying to feel something. But I mean, it's just poker's what I do, and gambling else is for fun.
That's fair. I'm a complete nit in the same way. I think I've lost $100 on a UFC fight once or something. I felt sick to my stomach. Like what?
But every now and then it does get me. Like this year, there was a line for a player in the NFL, and I put $300 on him at 10-1, and it hit. So I'm a winning better now because I'm at 3K.
Okay. So there's a little bit of degen in you. And have you ever had that impact your poker? Like, have you ever taken a shot that was ill advised?
No, I'd say I'm pretty nitty with BRM actually, because the second I got to it too much money, I'm really aware of like, ill advised is one thing because someone might say like, oh, you need 150 buy-ins to play something, right? Like if I'm playing, like maybe I was playing 2K before I had $200,000, for example, but
Sure.
in general, yeah, but even then it was like well thought out, like my edge at this table variance and like emotionally like ready to handle it. Like I've never been someone who like tilts and goes up stakes. I'm very like I wouldn't say I'm risk averse. I obviously play poker for a living, but I've never been someone who, outside of when I was DJing with the prepaid cards, that then I was a little crazy. But yeah, I'm always been pretty good about it because I'm just really aware of like if you do things the right way, then it'll work out. And if you do things the wrong way, I mean, eventually, like I just feel gross after like or
Mm.
before or while I'm
And,
playing.
and so you became pro, what, like 2 years ago, 3 years ago?
Yeah, around that.
Yeah. And how did friends and family react when they
Oh my
heard about
god. Well,
that?
I was already trying to be a League of Legends pro at that point. So you know what? It wasn't.
We'll
You know
take
what it
it.
was. What it was though, I would say is I never actually said I was going to be a poker player to myself because I already had the League of Legends thing where I was trying to do that. So like last, you don't want to be the guy who's like the boy who cried wolf saying you're going to do something crazy every time. I
Hmm.
think I had that level of self awareness how I was perceived. So I kind of just started playing, and I was just like, my plan was to go back to school and go to school, I guess, and pay for my own uni. That was kind of my goal with poker. Like, okay, I didn't have that level of like structure. I was playing a lot of video games, right? So I was like, okay, I'm gonna prove to myself I can work hard on something, and then I can accomplish something. And by the time I was playing, I mean, I was thinking like, oh, like, why do I want to go back to school? There's something I want to do there. And it just
Cool.
eventually came to my mom, like, yeah, I lost 5K today, and I just troll her with how much I lose. Every time I lose, I tell her.
I think my partner gets more trolled by the amount I win. She's just like, I fucking hate my job. Why? It's like,
Oh, see,
it
the
just,
losing for me is like I don't know. The winning it's like the reverse of like you want to come across not degenerate, so you just say the losses because the win you feel like that like there's a guy on YouTube, Mickey the Gambler. You don't want to no
yeah,
hate.
yeah, yeah.
I feel like I come across like that when I say how much I win, but when I say how much I lose, it's like
Yeah,
fine.
it's a different troll EV depending on the person you're trying to
Mhm.
exploit. Um,
Exactly.
well, so I asked some people. By the way, Carter has a Discord server. We can plug that real quick if you'd like more
Oh
subscribers.
yeah, it's just Schrodinger's VPIP. I think it's on my YouTube channel in the description. I haven't been as good about it as I should be. It's not the most well ran. Like we got a community over there. It's
Mm-hmm.
a great community.
Yep.
Everyone's very positive, and
Yep.
it's a good time. You can talk about anything in the Discord server. I actually almost prefer the non-poker talk to the poker talk. So, if you just play poker and you're by yourself, you want someone who understands poker, but you can talk about other stuff. It's a good channel to be in.
Yeah, awesome. So we pulled some hands from that channel. We got some pretty cool ones. So we're gonna look at some hands from 50 NL and I think maybe 100 NL, and then as a bonus, Carter is going to show one of his own hands for this episode of Punt or No Punt. This hand is, I believe, at 100 NL.
The three bet coming in, or
I would assume so. So far, we're happy with how the hand's going.
yeah, I mean you can call sometimes, but
Yeah, yeah. I was
I,
thinking
I
about
would
the
I
two
just
action
preferred it
cutoff.
at
Yeah,
100 and now. I just prefer three bet.
yeah, yeah.
This board, I mean, he's gonna range bet. I don't know if it's always a range bet because you're from the big blind, but
It's a little bit more connected and less dry than would be like a slam dunk range bet, right? Like a king eight deuce or something like that. But I think at these stakes, it's pretty fine. Okay, we got a pretty
I already know
bad
what's gonna
turn.
happen. So I feel like you know what's gonna happen.
Well, what we assume is going to happen is bet, 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 right? But I feel like it's going to get a bit fancier than that. So it goes check,
Uh-oh,
check, turn.
If I don't know what's gonna happen. Three blocks. I don't love block.
Yeah. So let's think about this part of the hand in isolation for a second. So, um, one thing that I think I sort of suspect you can start thinking about on the turn if you're this player absurdism is what your plan is on different rivers. So what is your plan on the like just a clean queen? I guess every queen is clean, and on an ace of diamonds and on a non-ace of diamonds would be useful things to think about because this block strikes me as something that was crafted once the card binked off.
He's just not. He's obviously saying that he's repping like I don't know. The intent of block. It's hard for me to imagine this Ken could make more money just because in like this line because the point of blocking here would obviously be like your hand is worth more than the size he's betting here clearly.
Mm-hmm.
So it'd be like if you A think your opponent's going to raise a lot or B your range is constructed in a way where you need to protect a lot of your blocking range. Like there's a strong incentive to block, but there's
Mm-hmm.
just not here. There's a lot of reasons.
Yeah, exactly.
Um,
So like if we to show why block might not make a lot of sense here, like um what would be how many hands can we think of that would want to block is sort of what I was wondering.
yeah, obviously he's building a range around King X, right?
Hmm.
Which isn't really you're not really checking much King X because you're not really three betting King 9 here either. To
Hmm.
like your or King 10, King Jack type hands.
Right.
Um, so you're already repping a very thin checking range on this ring because King Queen and Ace Queen are ace king are likely going to bet on the turn. So you're basically repping queens and jacks, right? Like obviously, but it's not really incentivized. Both players actually hit the ace a lot. It's kind of a polar spot.
Yeah, and I almost wonder if this is like almost a bit big for queens and jacks. I know it's a very small bet, but
Yeah.
like you might even go like $6 or less with queens and jacks.
I
Like,
don't think it's a great play. I prefer to probably check those hands, but
yeah, I tend to agree with you, and so really it's like if you're three betting linear, then it's king jack suited, king queen suited that didn't
yeah.
bet the turn. I think how absurdism is thinking about it is like, well, it's hard to get called by many hands besides a king. I'm like
Yeah.
kind of scared to pile and get jammed on or something. So
I
let me
think
just
what a lot of
go ahead.
people, so I don't mean to cut you off, but I think what a lot of people fall into the trap of, and I notice I have a friend who does this, and you're friends with him too, but he falls into the trap of I guess the whatever is going to happen, the most likely scenario he wants to profit in that scenario, as opposed to the scenarios where you would, for example, this spot, yeah, your opponent is going to have not a lot of ace x. You have an ace in your hand. That's the main perceived calling range for any size bigger than half pot here, right? We can agree on that. So this guy's probably thinking, oh, he's gonna have a lot of low pocket pairs. Let me see if I can get a sneaky call from them. But in the long run, it's just not gonna make as much money as if you just blasted here and he had ace jack. Like like the amount of times, yeah.
Right.
So
And, this is more the Doug Polk way of thinking, but if you really think that every single time this guy has pocket nines and every single time he's folding to 3/4, if you really thought that, then you would just have the most printing bluffing opportunity in the world and you would be owning this guy in the long run
oh, I
anyways.
do love blocking here as a bluff though.
Well, okay, so I mean, yeah, but okay, so we go for the block and we've discussed a little bit about why perhaps the puntiest decision of the hand, but we'll find out. So we face the raise from rake too high here. Okay, what do you think? What do you think of? Well, what do you think of the spot? And then what do you think absurdism's going to do?
I think he's obviously going to rip, and I guess honestly, if he has a read on the guy and he thinks this is the intent of the hand, I'm gonna block because he's always gonna raise his worst ace x, which I think I don't know. You play in the pool, we play in it. This is not happening very often. So
Yeah. There is a piece of information that this is the person put, and normally I don't worry too much about this kind of thing, but their thinking in this hand is very interesting, which is that they are 3-bet jamming this river as a bluff.
yeah, that is just, I don't know. I just, the thing is, I think people in poker, they have this like mainly in lower stakes. I think in higher stakes everything's a leveling game and it kind of evens out. But in lower stakes, like as a rule of thumb, just when your opponent has a strong range, so in this situation, just don't try to bluff them. I think in general, if you're trying to overbet jam over a guy, unless he's like extremely capped, like he has a one pair holding every single time, and you're check jamming the river. Let's say he's the aggressor and the board's like low paired. Sure, okay. But in general, if your opponent doesn't have any bluffs in their range, don't try to rebluff them. Just not a good idea. And I just don't think the guy's bluffing 8-7 here, ever.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah. No, and you see it at 500 and L too. Like someone reps only flushes, and then someone else snap calls a set where they wouldn't snap call like top pair or something like that because they just like I don't want to think about folding a hand this strong. Just like get it over with, right? I mean, we're human beings and we have a psychological aversion to like fortune reversal. Like it's just very difficult to believe if you have like ace-8 suited here or something that you're beat.
Also,
So
I would say not that it matters much because obviously he's just assuming his opponent's drastically overfolding. I think that's also what it is, though. It's like you're expecting your opponent to almost make a theoretical overfold, which I usually don't love to do in a spot where the theoretical overfold is a set.
Yeah.
So like here, it's like your opponent's bottom of this folding range might be ace queen, so you have it. I mean, you're just naturally blocking a lot of the ace queen he's going to also have.
Right.
Like if you were gonna do it and you blocked ace 10 and he raised you and you're like, all right, you know what? I'm gonna rip it in his face. I mean, sure, but you have ace queen.
Yeah.
I think you're just falling into the trap of the moment because obviously he wants to bluff the spot. He knows his combo might not be the best, but he knows he's never gonna get the spot versus this guy again. So he just wants to choose it, which is fine.
Yeah. I also wonder too if there's not like a reverse fortune reversal thing going on here where it's like from our perspective too. It's not just that it's a mistake because we're asking him to fold a very strong hand, but for absurdism, it might be difficult to accept that the hand is lost a lot of EV here facing the raise and just kind of trying to come up with a solution to win the hand to salvage the fact that it feels kind of unlucky that they're in this spot. That being said, I think all things said and done, is this spot under bluff for rake too high? Yeah, probably, but I just think you have a little bit too much of a value catcher or value chopper
Yeah,
to
yeah,
really
yeah,
just like
yeah.
not just like call and move on with your life with the odds that you're getting. So we rip it in and we get the fold. And oh, sorry, we don't get the fold. We get the tank call with the ace five. Yeah.
Yeah, this is the problem. I mean, if you told me, I mean, if there was a hand he could probably fold in this line, it would be a hand that loses to ace king. And
Right.
it's also like, in my opinion, you're just not very credible here. Like, are you really saying you checked aces on a king high board on this turn? Are you saying you checked ace king on the turn on a king high board?
Right. Right.
On,
Yeah. Yeah. I think that's why, like, we often think of like very, very strong players as playing with a very theoretical foundation and weaker players like playing more by feel. But actually, as you're moving up, you should maybe just start with the fundamentals, start with the basics. Like, what's your value range here? Like, how often do you have value here? And like, try to follow those principles first so that you just don't get into lines where you like don't rep anything.
yeah,
And
yeah,
you just, I think he's going to fold two pair and you rip it in.
yeah, yeah.
So, Carter, is the verdict punt or no punt?
Oh, definitely punts.
I think
Definitely
like
punts.
vintage punt. I'm sorry,
But
absurdism, but
you
like
know
put
what?
it
I
up on the
like I
wall.
like that he put it in there because that's poker. You know, you learn when you put in your worst plays. I'm sure,
100%.
sure this guy's a winning player and he's just made a bad play. You know?
Yeah, and something that I have been told many times that's helped me lick my wounds, and I very feel comfortable telling absurdism is that if you have this play in you, that's a good thing.
Yeah, exactly, exactly. I
Yeah,
I agree.
yeah.
I will
So,
say one thing. I think he is thinking a little too narrow. Like sometimes people, I think he's seeing monsters a little too much. Like I think in the sense, the fact that he decided to block this river
mhm,
made him me think that I think he perceived his opponent's in range to be stronger than it was, and then the fact that he thought his jam was going to get through. Also, I think because he thought his opponent like his opponent's range was so strong, he thought that like him bluffing over it would be
mhm.
super strong. But I think he's just thinking a little too not wide ranged. I think.
Yep.
I think some people fall in the trap of they're thinking aces, kings, ace, king, pocket eight. Like they're not thinking of ace jack or ace ten. Just like
Mhm,
more normal holdings.
mhm, mhm. Yeah. And yeah, the line is block flop, check turn, block river. Ace Jack, I would raise Ace Jack
Yeah,
here.
yeah, yeah,
So
yeah, yeah.
like, I mean, I know it's the lower stake, but it's not that much lower.
I
Like,
just think you just put you put your B75 in. The guy's not folding an ace. You don't
yeah,
even have the ace of diamonds. He's got
maybe
all
he's
those
in it.
close.
Who knows? Maybe he just calls and you save yourself a bunch of money if you put a
For
healthy bet
sure,
in on the
for
river.
sure,
So,
for sure.
so
I
yeah,
agree.
yeah. Anyway, okay, so vintage punt, put it up on the wall, show it to your kids.
It's
Definitely,
definitely
definitely
a
a
punt.
punt. Yeah. Okay, so good check on the flop. I think
Yeah,
there's
yeah.
probably a lot of people are a little bit too mergy here, and what's going to happen is their check range is going to be like pretty iffy. So I think the check on the flop is pretty reasonable. Any thoughts on the flop?
It's obviously low, so like his range, he's gonna have a lot of these small pairs. Just in practice, people tend to not be as balanced as like a sim would say from their button
Mhm,
flatting range here. But in general, I don't. I prefer the bet because I just do think it's gonna be a lot of low pocket pairs with one heart. So I think you're just gonna generate a little bit more money. And I don't think button flatting range. But we're obviously a little more exploitative here, like in theory. People just won't find the bluffs into you, which is where a lot of your checking range EV is going to come from.
mm, yeah,
Whereas they're not gonna find, they're not gonna just blast off. And even if they're blast off, you're not gonna really call them down. So I prefer like the small bets, really put them in the tough spots to make their decisions. Um,
yeah.
it's also gonna be hard to get value on the river here because I really don't think he's gonna have a worse ace too often. So I think if you get your value on the turn and the flop, you're
Yeah.
gonna be in
It's
good shape.
interesting because like the small bet, I don't know exactly. I think really what it accomplishes a lot against is pocket pairs without a heart. Because whether you
Yeah,
check or bet small, pocket pairs with a heart have so much equity against your hand that I don't think you really make that much more money in the long run
I
against
get what
them
you're
any.
saying. You're inflating the poppers. A hand that's
Yeah,
got more equity versus you, but
it's kind of the same thing, whichever you do versus those hands, right? Certainly, I think what you could potentially be, you would want to be careful to avoid is that like your whole checking range becomes two black tens, and
yeah, yeah, yeah.
so
But I don't think
um,
you get exploited in this spot. I really.
yeah, yeah, yeah. I can see what you mean. Um, so we get the block on the turn instead, the delayed c bet and the call,
Your opponent refs
and
he calls. This guy's sick. There's no way.
so we get pot and the call.
Um,
I think I like this hand, Carter.
think you like it,
Yeah.
and
What do
I
you
mean
think?
it's hard to deny. Me, I don't know. I don't know if I like it. I mean, it's really, I will say it's really hard for your opponent to have the nuts, and he is potting it. So it's really hard for him to have a king of hearts. Think it's just true.
Yeah,
But it's really hard for him to jack of hearts or 10 of hearts. So he's not really repping too much. But that being
that's right.
said, it's really hard for me to imagine my opponent would have bluffs here. He obviously had the one bluff. It's hard for me to find another one that he could have 6-5. Yeah, I would say yeah, it's probably an okay call. I think.
And Carter, just for people watching who might not be as clear on this, why is it difficult for Call Me Babe to have the Jack of Hearts, 10 of Hearts, or King of Hearts?
Oh, sorry about that. I just think he's not going to be flatting too many hands on the button that call a 3-bet that are not suited, and
That's right.
usually people will 3-bet these Broadway hands from the button. They don't flop them.
That's
They
right.
don't flat them. I mean,
Yeah.
there's very good players who will play a very balanced flatting range from the small blind, but I mean from the button. I keep saying small from the button, but I think in lower stakes it's just going to be these low hands like 5s, 3s, like obviously sets, but 6s, 7s, 7,
Mhm.
6 connectors.
Yeah, or like an ace wheel suited or
Yeah,
something
yeah,
maybe.
yeah,
But
exactly.
and also just like theoretically, it wouldn't, their range might be a little bit off, but it should not contain a lot of king queen offsuit and stuff like that because hands that are suited have better playability. If you're guaranteed to see a flop, you want hands that realize equity and have more playability. If you might take the pot down pre-flop, then that matters a lot less, and blockers matter a little bit more. It's like I might just win the hand, right? So if you're calling, you're always seeing a flop. And that's often why you'll see the solver prefer more
And I
suited
also will
hands.
say calling flop is different because I think hands like 6-5 are in there, but when he calls turn, I really don't even think he's gonna continue hands like 6-5. So I can't really think of many bluffs. I almost
Well,
feel
the
like this guy
flop was
deserves
check
to.
check, right?
Yeah, and he bets turn.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
I can't think of another bluff besides 7-6. I almost feel like he deserved to get it through.
Well, well, 7-6-6-5. You don't think that a player is ever going to bluff a hand on the
I don't
turn?
think he's going to continue 6-5 when he faces the B33 very often.
Yeah, maybe that's true. But do you think they ever bluff river with like sixes with a heart, sevens with a heart, or eights with a heart?
Not a bluff anymore.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, I guess that's totally true. Oof, okay, yeah. So I guess the number of combos here on the river is pretty slim. Yeah, I guess my first thought was just, yeah, I just can't really think that the value, and I didn't even really think that they were going thin enough with ace jack, like the jack of hearts if they ever had that here, or the
I definitely
ten of
agree with
hearts.
that. But,
You definitely wish.
I definitely agree with what you're saying, but sometimes people will like I've seen people have the potential to go thin here,
Yeah,
just due to how capped Red World's perceived to be.
yeah,
So
yeah.
that being said, I would, in my opinion, I'd like to fold this hand, but I'm definitely not going to call it a punt. So well played. But I would say you have to be careful with stuff like this because it kind of might make you think it's a great call. But there's most players, I just think in general, and you could run into a lot of things here. So
Right. I mean, I think it does ultimately underline like a valuable principle, which is like if you have a sense for what hands your opponent's value betting and how likely those hands are, and you can think of a lot of extra bluffs, then it's almost always a printing call. This spot we're kind of debating back and forth because it's sort of like we can think of very few bluffs and very little value. So
yeah.
this becomes very tough.
But if the opponent's tricky or he's a wreck, the value actually becomes really easy to figure out. Whereas the bluffs, even no matter how bad they are, it's really tough for me to find many.
Hmm.
So
Hmm.
that's why I would like to probably err on the side of fold, but it worked out. Just because
Okay.
like you never know, your opponent could have king 10 of hearts here. Just check the flop back, call turn, potted river.
At
Could have king jack.
5-4 suited too probably calls the turn with the gutty. Yeah.
Oh, that's a good call. But yeah,
Yeah. Okay. All right. And I guess if they're calling 7-6 and they're calling 7-8,
probably not this double gutter versus.
oh, it's
But
yeah.
maybe.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. This is one more hand. This is a wild one, Carter.
Yeah.
So we'll get your thoughts on this. So we get a check on the flop, a 50 and L, and we go for the B75 or yeah, something like that. What do you think about the hand so far?
And I'm sure it can do it sometimes. You probably want some ace X. When you have the ace of diamonds, obviously great, and your opponent is going to fold out better ace X here. He's going to fold ace 9, ace 8. So
Yeah.
if you're going to bet an ace, yeah.
Yeah, you got great backdoor equity that can handle having to fold to a check raise, but at the same time, like you can turn really disguised outs with like the wheel draw, and then you've got
The 3 is really not blocking many of his folds. If you had a hand like ace 9, all these 9x folds that are check fold 9, 8, 9, 7.
yeah. So cool so far. Now I actually hadn't remembered that So, okay, I didn't remember this part of the hand. So we face the check raise on the flop.
Yeah, I don't know. I think it's not a big raise. I mean, this really comes down to your read on your opponent because obviously the EV from calling here largely is going to be from bluffing later streets. So if you have a read that your opponent is not going to triple off very often to you, because obviously your hand's like pretty much dead versus a triple barrel, um, and he is going to he's going to give up a lot when he misses, and he's reasonably bluffing a lot in this line, then you could really print by calling here a lot. If your opponent is A, bluffing this line, and B, someone who doesn't give up their bluffs, then you're also probably going to be in trouble. So that's what I think.
Yeah, I mean, I think that a lot of the hands that small blind is probably going to find for bluffs at these stakes are not going to have a difficult time firing the turn if they decide they want to. Hands like King 10,
I
10,
will
9.
say theoretically though, if you're someone who's B75 in the spot to call the spot, you are just not folding anything. So you should be careful.
Yeah, yeah, no, this
This is
is
basically an airball. This is like a zero equity, basically, like the bottom of your equity.
this is like I hate Alexander's 92 more than I've ever hated anybody. I can't wait to flip over my hand or something. It feels like that kind of play.
Yeah, yeah.
Once again, it's good that you can go for it. If you thought this was theoretical though, Red World, then we need to drill some
You're
blind.
gonna be careful because I think people misunderstand like how much. I know what he's thinking. Like I need bluffs when a diamond comes in, but you can just pick equity, high equity hands like 10-9 and King 10.
Yeah,
Can
yeah.
easily be in.
Your range once you bet is a very small subsection of all of your overall hands, and then facing the check raise, you get to fire the bottom X% of hands and only pick. So some of your continues are already just like really nutted, and that's gonna naturally mean that the bunch of the crap just like falls away. Then you've got King 10 and you've got 10-9 and you've got 6-5 suited and you've got maybe Ace 10 off and like all kinds of hands. Ace 10 off with a diamond, for example, like obviously is a call, and then those hands can bluff later, diamond runouts.
People fall in the trap of calling the bluff. It's just mathematically it doesn't make much money. I mean, you're always going to be risking more than you're willing to make. So it has to work very often.
Right.
And
yeah.
You're calling to bluff. There's
Yeah.
just so many ways he's going to lose this hand.
Yeah. All right.
All right. Well, that's your card.
Yeah. So check turn, check back. I think you should probably bet turn.
I like the check back because I think people fall in the trap of he actually has a lot better bluffs here. He's not he doesn't have that much equity versus queen. He's blocking some folds in the sense of your opponent might actually just whale out with ace x of diamonds himself. So you would like to have when you have 10-9, you might have that snap fold. You don't really rep a jack that well either. I mean, you're B75 calling too many jacks.
Yeah.
Really, just because your opponent's capped. Like if I'm Alexander's and I did this with ace queen, I'm just like snap calling him down because I just like this guy doesn't make any sense. So, and it's really easy to have 10-9 King 10. You have like infinite bluffs, like basically nothing got there. So
yeah, it's almost like we're node locking the solver to like have to have this hand, and we're like, just check the hand, get it over with.
Yeah. So like the fact that you beat King 10, 10-9, I think it's a good check.
Cool. Okay. Cool.
Makes you harder to play verse because if you're reopening every bluff, you're too easy to play verse. So the fact that he's willing to take a showdown, it's tougher.
The reason to potentially consider a hand like this to reopen as opposed to King 10, 10-9 is in case you get check raised. But sort of the same reason we like this hand to bet flop with.
But it's not too much. It's not too much lost EV, honestly, at this point. The 9.
Yeah, true. Okay, so check, and then we face a shove on the river.
Happen. Let's go. I love it. I love it. I don't believe him.
Yeah. Why don't we believe him, Carter?
I just think he has too many bluffs, and it's not that it's never good. I mean, people might find the ace queen here. They might find their check raising range. I think the check raising range is already sus to begin with. I mean, he was obviously repping like 5s and stuff that he bet it up with, but I mean, you beat all his bluffs. I like it.
Yep. The only thing is potentially, in theory, we're supposed to find some check raises as thin as like ace jack on the flop, but yeah, for the most part, like it's a little bit scary to shove a hand like king queen or ace queen here. And I just like tend to think that people don't value bet thin at low stakes enough.
Yeah.
And that really allows you to make more hero calls when the value range narrows and the bluff range.
I will say, like, you actually are going to be folding a lot here. So outside of your value range, which you're probably going to bet a lot on the turn because your opponent's repping a lot of draws. So naturally, you're going to reopen a lot of your like. You're not going to have much Jack X. You probably bet reopen turn. You probably reopen a good amount of your strong Queen X that you called. When you get to the river here, you're gonna be folding your 10-9, your king 10, you check back. You're gonna be folding your 7-6 of diamonds, or I don't know, 6-8 of diamonds that you didn't three bet.
Mm-hmm.
But so you need to be able to call some stuff like this just to keep your opponent. Yeah, I like it. I think exploitively it makes a lot of money too because
Yeah.
line is not really make any sense from.
Yeah. Those old school things, like they hold true, right? Like, what is the story your opponent is telling, and is it consistent with what they're capable of? If their story is, oh, I check raised ace queen, and then I check turn, and then I'm willing to value bet thin on the river so that you call me with a 5. It's like, no, that's not how you're thinking. So yeah. All right, awesome. So we'll say no punt on this one.
No punt. Good job, bro.
Sweet. All right, Red Whirl got.
I will say you're a bit crazy though. You just need to be a little more.
Yeah.
A little more. Like this time it worked out, but just because your opponent had king 3 diamonds, you weren't in a great spot because if a diamond came off, you were gonna stack off and lose.
That's actually very true. That's very true. Yeah. So like, just, like you don't have to hurt everybody every hand. Like if you just, you're always going to be able to apply this ability to like level people and stuff like that, and just own them with 6-5 next time. Like it's okay. Yeah. I guess you don't really have 6-5. It's a little bit awkward. Ace 10. Own them with ace 10. So yeah. Okay. So Carter, we'll flip it over to you. You've got the bonus hand for us here.
Yeah. I do need a screenshot. I need to figure out a screen share on this.
Yep. We're all good.
Okay. So this is at 1K versus a player but we won't say who he is.
Okay.
So yeah, Queen Jack, revet pre-flop.
Already a little spicy.
It's a low frequency play.
Yeah.
It exists.
I was thinking we're also a little bit deeper too. So, but
125 bigs. Yeah.
All right, spicy. Well, let's do it.
All right, so we start on the flop, and obviously B33 or check. Not B33 pure, but this hand obviously Queen Jack with the heart. It's gonna gain more EV betting than checking. I think you can just check back Queen Jack without a heart. Obviously we get raised here. And what do you think so far?
Okay, so let me think about it for a second. Well, and we're not gonna. I know.
I've already looked at this hand. I've already looked at it, so I'm cheating.
Okay. So, do we have anything that we can use about our opponent here? Like, I was wondering, for example, if you 3-bet the Queen Jack off just because maybe you wanted to play this person a little bit more than the average reg, or.
No, I mean when I tell, I don't want to say who it is, but it's an Ontario reg.
Okay.
Yeah.
So no strong
no reason
that we're gonna use.
Roll a pretty high number. I think it's possible. Okay. I think I'd say a slight. I don't want to give too much, but I do think people do tend to under 4-bet a little bit. So yeah, should make a little bit more money. I think also sometimes there can be, if there's a rec, so a lot of times in Ontario you're going to have people in theory should open wider in the cutoff.
Right.
If there's a rec in the big blind. So.
Okay.
Yep.
Yeah, Jack 9 suited probably exists more for the button than it does for the cutoff, right? Or maybe in equal proportions for both. Yeah,
definitely more, but
right. And so we have to be check raising basically. Sets here for value. I don't really think a hand like jacks or queens is going to check raise this flop all that much in practice, and even if they did, we double block that. So it does seem like we're more weighted towards a hand like ace 4 of hearts for our opponent here. Yeah. So, I mean, I think right now there's nothing to do with their hand but call, right? Like it's just
yeah. I think for sure a call. I think in general, like obviously people are going to be raising here. It's a lot of merge because the button is pretty. He has a tough time defending. Like obviously ace king, it's just gonna have to bin it. So. Yeah. So we get to the turn. Obviously the heart comes in, which is a huge card. Both players obviously have a lot of flushes. He obviously has perceived a lot of flushes, and I do, and he checks. So now we have to decide what to do here, and yeah, I tried to play. I already looked at this hand a bit, but I'll just say what I was thinking in game. When he checks here, I'm thinking obviously my opponent's the range he was representing is a lot of flush draws. He has a lot of flush draws, and he has a lot of like raw value hands like sets. Right. My perceived range is I'm going to have a crap ton of flushes, and then some slight over pairs. I was just thinking here. Generally, thinning my opponent's range to a stronger, like, more ace X of hearts type hands by betting this hand. I figured I would just check back, play rivers with this this type of hand. Not to mention, I think you get a little bit of an exploit on the river, just to see what your opponent does on the river here.
That's right. Yeah. I think it's there's maybe a EV to be gained over multiple streets. Like if you bet this turn, but it's possible that you have massive fold equity on the river or whatever. But if we just take it one street at a time here, our opponent's range is good hands and great hands on this turn, basically.
Yeah.
And I know they checked, but like the only thing that we could really hope to be up against is like 6-5 of diamonds or something, which we're beating. So like I think
exactly.
just check.
I think it makes you tougher to play against. You need to protect a lot of your checking range here. So
yeah.
So we check back. We get the queen on the river. So we get the queen, and our opponent leads with a block. And I mean, it's hard because I know the player. So yeah, so I know the player. And what I was thinking in game here is I just don't think my queen does anything. I really don't. Like I just don't think he's blocking a range here that my queen is relevant. I don't think he has like too many offsuit queen X of hearts with the queen of hearts, like that he's raising on the flop. So I don't think my showdown. I think my showdown value is a little fake. And I was just really didn't buy his line in the sense of I think my line is very easy to have very strong value hands, a lot of flushes, and yeah, I thought it was very hard for me to have a lot of bluffs in this line because I'm not going to be calling ace king on the flop. So I was thinking how many offsuit. I don't have queen jack of hearts every time, sure. So I was just thinking how often is it for me to have enough bluffs here, in general, right? It's like I need to take some offsuit hand with a heart pretty much, and I was just thinking like I'm not gonna call ace king on the flop, so it's basically ace jack, with the heart. And I just thought queen jack. There's no showdown. I think there's a chance. I don't really buy his line. I don't think he's playing a flush very often. So I go for the jam, and you can tell me what you think before we see what happens.
Yeah, you could always turn a hand like jacks with a heart into a bluff too, right? Like it doesn't have to be just ace king. Yeah, I guess it would feel a little gross to turn anything besides jacks with a heart into a bluff. But if we think the queen has no showdown,
Jacks is going to be jamming the flop.
Oh yeah, you're gonna just jam the flop with jacks. Okay.
Especially with the heart, so it's not the greatest. But that being said, it's definitely a fine bluff to do jacks with the heart, like you said. It's going to be blocking a lot of your opponent's flushes. But in general, I was thinking I've just had all these offsuit hands with the heart. I thought the line could be overfolded, and what my opponent has here is pretty crazy. But he has ace queen off with the heart, raise flop, check turn, hit it on the river. So
and block.
Yeah,
called you on the river.
Call me down with. He had a great call. Obviously, he has the ace of hearts. He has the queen. But I want to put my opponent in a spot where I don't have perceived a lot of bluffs. And if he has a set, he doesn't really block any of my value. So it's really hard for him to give me enough credit to what's it called? It's really hard for him to give me enough credit if he has a hand like pocket tens here, pocket sevens, when my line is so believable.
Yeah,
no. What do you think? Punts or no punt? I lost the EV I had the queen and I turned it into a bluff. So
I think it seems like not a punt to me. I'm a little surprised. Are you jamming like is Jack specifically jamming flop and then over pairs with less outs are calling more often? Or like I haven't really run these code red check raise two-tone boards with kings.
Sorry, what were you saying?
So like I'm just wondering how many over pairs you got to the river with, like because you've run the hand and seen.
Oh, I didn't check too much, but I do think versus type of range, I don't feel the need necessarily to turn a lot of over pairs into a bluff. But that being said, I don't know. I could easily.
No, I'm just wondering how many you get to the river with. Like you said that you're jamming jacks with a heart on the flop. Like, are you?
I don't know. I don't know if I'm doing pure. I think in practice I probably would jam it pretty often. But
okay.
I don't know. I don't know that I didn't go hard into the sim. I ran it right before the video to make sure like see it was a punt, just so I could answer some questions. But as far as the over pairs, and also I think in poker it's more about perception. Like we're talking a lot about what my strategy would be. And like, okay, if I'm turning every overpair into a bluff with a heart, I'm over bluffing. But what I was more focused on actually inside of the hand is my perceived bluffing range from my opponent. If in his shoes, he's not going to assume, I think, that I would turn jacks into a bluff, kings with a heart into a bluff, aces with a heart into a bluff when he has pocket tens here. If he thinks I'm that big of a psycho, then I mean, I just don't ever bluff the spot. It's simple as that, right?
I mean, your hand's not that different than those hands, right? Is the thing. But the only thing I was going to also ask you about is on the turn, what is your strategy with the flushes portion of your range? A hand like King Jack of Hearts or ace jack of hearts, raise 4 of hearts. How are you? Do you think you find enough checkbacks with flushes on the turn?
Oh, definitely. I think,
Okay.
in my opinion, the line is a little harder to play versus. Um,
Mm,
that being said, your opponent, like sometimes people, you think, oh, you get values from 10s, 7s, and 8s, but at the end of the day, they're never folding those hands. And at the end of the day, if the board pairs, you're probably gonna get stacked. So it doesn't really change much.
right.
You gotta let the hand play out. And I
Yeah.
think people fall into this trap of, well, we could have it and there's gonna be a river, but he's not folding. And you're just gonna actually trust me, if a 10 comes on the river or a 7 comes on the river, you're gonna wish you check back turn.
Yeah.
Um,
I
but
guess
the
it's
question is
more
what makes more when the board breaks out? And I think honestly, sometimes the leveling effect of checking back could easily make
right.
more. And
Right.
I forgot to add one tidbit. I do think in theory the reason I like the Queen of Hearts compared to a hand like Jacks is I thought if my opponent had a hand like Ace Queen of Hearts and he checked, he's more likely to block that because he blocks my top pair calling range or a hand like Pocket Queens that could maybe play this way. So I thought the fact that I had a pair with a heart blocker was actually a better jam.
Mm,
Just because I thought the line was so I didn't think my opponent would play a flush this way unless he had a pair with a flush. Like in general, I think like it's such a odd way to play a flush. So I thought maybe okay if he has Ace Queen of Hearts, maybe he decided to block it because he blocks all these. You know what I'm saying?
mm-hmm.
He has Ace. You know.
Mm-hmm.
So that's why I was like, okay, I have the block flush blocker in my head. That's kind of what I'm
Yeah.
saying.
Yeah. It seems like a hand of
I
poker.
will say, in theory, it is losing. So if you guys wanted to, it is definitely a punt.
Well, it's losing, and what are the better bluffs then
It's
to
just
have?
Ace Jack, just Ace Jack.
Just ace jack. Okay. Um, and then pre-flop, did you
But
run it 120 deep for the
yes,
jack off 3-bet? Okay. Okay. Cool.
I,
Cool.
I
Cool.
did, I did.
All right. All right. All right. Yeah, I think it's yeah, I think it's an interesting hand. I think it's a well played hand. I wouldn't worry too much about having the ace of hearts versus the queen of hearts here. It seems to me.
Yeah.
Both are-
Well, Ace is probably better, but
Yeah. Yeah.
I thought I wasn't gonna have Ace. I mean, that's sometimes you fall in the trap in game. I'm not always thinking about range perfectly. I just thought, how many offsuit hearts am I gonna really have here? So, I just decided to, like, you know what, I need to turn a decent amount. Obviously, when you look in hindsight, okay, you got Ace Jack, that's a good amount. You got, you know,
Hmm.
Ace Jack's
Yeah.
better betting the turn a little bit.
Kind of a good spot to like run these things in Equilab, especially if you're coming up in stakes. Just like you run it in game and you think, oh, I don't have enough of these hands, and then you look at your range afterwards and you think, okay, how many of these hands do I need to have as bluffs to make them indifferent?
Sure, for sure.
Yeah. All right. Well, Carter, that's great. I'm glad we got to see a sick hand. You didn't. I don't think you humiliated yourself too much in that one. I think
I
that's
tried to find one where I don't want to pick one where it was a genius play. I wanted to pick one where I lost. It wasn't a winning play in theory, but there was some discussion.
yeah, yeah. No, a well picked hand. Anything you want to leave everybody with? Any advice or any plugs? Any
Um,
well wishes?
advice? No, I have a good amount on my YouTube channel. I think I don't really stop talking over there, but yeah, my YouTube channel is SchrodingersVPIP at youtube.com, and yeah, if you want to check it out, but we gotta post the play and explain probably tomorrow. So yeah, I hope if you guys like the way I talk about poker, then yeah, check it out.
Yeah.
That's about
Awesome.
it.
Okay. Well, he'll be around for a while, so check out Schrodinger's VPIP, and everybody take care for now.
All right. Thank you.